इमिग्रेशन के जो मामले हैं और जो माइग्रेंट क्राइसिस अमेरिका के सदर्न बॉर्डर पे और नॉर्दर्न बॉर्डर पे जो जारी है, क्राइसिस कहा जा रहा है कि सदर्न बॉर्डर पे ज़्यादा है। तो उसमें ये कहा जा रहा है कि अब जिस तरह से ग्रुप्स आ रहे हैं तो उनके जो लोग वहाँ पर क्रॉस करने की कोशिश करते हैं, पकड़े जाते हैं, फिर छोड़े जाते हैं, तो उनकी देखभाल करने वाला कौन होता है? तो इसके लिए कुछ ऑर्गेनाइज़ेशंस वहाँ काम करती हैं, जो कि बॉर्डर के मेक्सिको साइड पे भी और अमेरिका साइड दोनों पे। उनमें से एक ऑर्गेनाइज़ेशन है अल ओथरो लाडो। तो उनकी बॉर्डर राइट्स प्रोजेक्ट है उसका, तो उस प्रोजेक्ट की सुपरवाइजिंग अटॉर्नी हैं Holly Webb. So, Holly, what are the basic help you provide and assistance to these migrants on both sides of the US and Mexico border?
So the organization that I work for, Otro Lado, is located in Tijuana in Mexico, which is on the border. San Diego is the city on the other side. And so we encounter a lot of people who are coming to the border to seek asylum. What we try to do is we try to offer legal orientation. We try to give them information about the current situation at the border. We provide humanitarian assistance in some aspects when we can. And then we also we represent people. We have offices in Los Angeles and San Diego as well, and so we also do some direct representation. And then we also engage in impact litigation for issues that affect the rights of migrants.
And with this new policy announcement, I mean, for people to stay out, don't come to the US border. So, how do you think this will impact your organization's work and for people who are trying to get to the border and get to the into the asylum process? I mean, they could try. So now, what has changed? What will change, you think?
Well, unfortunately, nothing in here is new. Title 42 has been in effect since the start of the pandemic, and there has been ongoing litigation on that topic. But it so far has remained in effect, even though it's a policy that's about COVID. It's that's sort of a veneer for what the government is really trying to do is prevent migration. It's, we see that right now people with tourist visas, people who are US citizens or green card holders, they can come and go as they please. So, COVID and without wearing masks or without being vaccinated. So it's kind of it's COVID is very obviously a pretext for Title 42. It just exists to prevent migration. Previously, before this announcement, migrants had to go through other organizations who would then submit a request on their behalf for an appointment. But it was still this metered appointment based system that is really not allowing the people who need help and need access to the asylum system a way to access that immediately. All of these things they create situations where people are in more danger. They create dangerous environments for migrants at the border. The only groups that really benefit from these kind of policies are organized criminal groups who can then charge more. They can extort migrants. They can kidnap them. There are all kinds of things that people stuck at the border are vulnerable to. And so these kind of policies, they don't stop migration. They don't stop the root causes that's people are fleeing from in their home countries. There's no policy that the US government can implement at the border. There's no wall, there's nothing that they can implement that will keep people from fleeing for their lives when they think that their lives and their children's lives are in danger.
So, what do you think is the solution? I mean, it's not an easy thing, obviously. I mean, immigration policy as such is humongous, which needs, some experts say, a transformation. But what do you suggest? I mean, to at least get to a sensible policy where America lets people in, those who really fear for their lives, and to some extent, this asylum process has been doing that, would you say?
This is really it's a stopgap measure. It's really keeping more people out than it is helping at all. Prior to the Trump administration, there were the U.S. law as it stands right now. People under U.S. law and under international law, people have a right to seek asylum. People have a legally protected right to seek asylum, and the U.S. law protects that. And so people have a right to come to the border and to a port of entry and to say, "I'm in fear for my life. I want to seek asylum." And this policy is ignoring that law. It's blocking people from this legal right that they have. And the US government has shown in the past they have the capacity to process people. That's a very it's a very obvious excuse. It's again, this policy is under the pretext of COVID, but other people can come and go as they please. If you believe that this is preventing COVID, then you have to believe that U.S. citizens and tourist visa holders and green card holders somehow can't get COVID, but migrants can. Um, so it's a very transparent policy when the real attempt is to prevent migration. But it's so with all of this, back in April of last year, when the crisis in Ukraine and with the invasion of Russia started, the U.S. government in certain ports of entry was processing over 500 people per day. And under this new policy, they've only committed in certain ports of entry to processing a much lower number. And so, like, we've seen that the US government has the capacity to process asylum seekers. And before Trump put all of these policies in place to prevent asylum seekers from accessing the asylum system, that was sort of the standard. People could go to the port of entry and they could seek asylum. And, that was, as the government understood it, they understood that as their obligation to process those people.
Tell me about the nitty-gritties, about the functioning of your organization, which really works on both sides of the border and must be really a great help for the migrants who are traveling very insecure and dangerous terrains and many countries to come and reach to the Mexico border.
Well, we primarily we believe that people are very capable of making their own decisions, and these are people who have survived, all kinds of challenges along the way, and so they're obviously very capable. And so we just want to empower people to be able to make informed decisions under circumstances that we know that the circumstances aren't fair and that people are violating their rights, and we want to prepare people for that. We want to fight for their rights when we can. And then we also want to just give people information so that they can understand these circumstances and understand how to navigate the system.
And it involves legal help, assistance in the filling up application, translating this stuff into English from Spanish and vice versa, I think. So what are other things that you help, your organization helps migrants with, say, shelter, food, because they are out in the open. We see videos all the time. People are coming out, being out on the streets, Tijuana or San Diego, El Paso, any city on the border.
We work to connect people with resources depending on where they are in Mexico. We try to find shelters for people. We work to connect them with medical resources. We don't directly provide those services, but we work with other organizations and other partners on the ground who do. So we work to connect people to find those resources that they need. The vast majority of the people that we see are from Central America or from Haiti. We see a lot of people from Russia now as well. And, in the past, we saw a lot of Ukrainians, but we have seen some migrants from India, but we don't see those kinds of numbers as much as we do people from other places. We try to put out as much information as possible. We work with a lot of, we try to share information at different shelters if we can. We have a social media account that we try to share updates and things like that. But, to some extent, there's also sort of a word of mouth presence. So it always sort of depends.
Title 42 and Title 8 have been there. But now with this new policy that was announced, they are saying that you have to use apps or file online. Don't come to the border. President Biden was very specific. He said, don't come to the border. I mean, this is not much different, as you said, that this is not much different. Don't come to the border, but it's not going to stop people just by announcing the policy.
The issue is that it's another way to sort of meter and slow down and make appointments and try to slow the number of people. But at the end of the day, CBP and Border Patrol have the capacity to process people as they arrive. And it's just sort of another way around them actually just doing that. So that I think, particularly for Indian migrants like this, who, if they don't speak English or Spanish, the app will be challenging because it is only available in English and Spanish right now.
What basically are the issues that you think your organization and organizations like yours want the administration to change when it comes to practically on the ground thing? Because you people have a very keen sense of human rights angle as well. So what would you suggest and what do you say to the administration, which is ironically considered to be quite sympathetic to the migrants?
I mean, we have been saying for the whole time that the Biden administration needs to just reopen the border and honor the legally protected right to seek asylum. It's already in U.S. law. It's already an international law, and they have the capacity to process people at the ports of entry as they arrive.
Have there been any success? I mean, what do they say when you reach out to politicians and policymakers?
I mean, I think it's a very complicated time, since especially since the Trump years, just as it is right now, there's just a lot of pushback. I mean, there's ongoing litigation about all of these issues, but it's been, it's definitely been challenging. But
Oliver,
it's, it's interesting because people act like it's a really outrageous request when that was sort of the de facto system up until the Trump administration. This was how this worked. This was how people sought asylum. They were able to present at a port of entry, or if they crossed, they were able to present themselves to Border Patrol officials and say, I have a fear of returning to my home country. So this is not an outrageous request that's, unheard of. It's something that's never happened in U.S. law. This was the de facto system up until around 6 years ago. It's not really a crisis. It's not a crisis of migration. It's a crisis of policy. This is something that's created by the U.S. government. It's not that migration is anything new. Migration has happened for years and years and for all of human history, and it will always happen. And as a country, as people in the world, we can decide how we want to welcome people, whether we want to treat people with dignity and respect and honor their human rights, or whether we want to put walls up and try to isolate ourselves. But migration is going to happen either way.
Thank you so much, Oliver. It was really nice speaking with you.